This content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Is up, guys? Back again, Justin Jennings with Jennings Performance Coaching, and today we're entering into episode 4 of our Optimized Physique series. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about recovery. So, our first video we went through which are the most important factors for you to optimize for your physique development. Our second video, we talked about nutrition. That was number 1. And last week's video, we talked about training. This week, we're going to talk about recovery because you don't need to recover from stimulus that's not happening. So training had to be first. But if you're not recovered from your training, and there's some problems there, and your training's not going to be doing what you wish it was. So let's talk about how to manage recovery, how to manage your training so that you can recover better, how to manage your sleep, and all of that stuff. First of all, what do we mean when we say recovery? So, first thing here is a lot of people don't understand how allostatic load works or how stress on the body works. So, we're going to run through that super elementary, super quick first thing. First thing is your body responds to all stress the same. Whether it's training stress, whether it's stress from work, whether it's stress from at home, uh, stress from. We got a new dog a couple months ago, and I was pretty deep into my fat loss diet phase. Uh, Banjo, our little puppy, little golden retriever, that was probably not the best thing for my recovery. Having a brand new puppy, potty training, all of that. So, any type of stress you're adding into your life is going to all add up to the same amount of allostatic load. Doesn't matter where that stress is happening. So we have to get in the gym and we have to train hard in order to stimulate muscle growth, or if we're in a fat loss phase, just keep the muscle from falling off of your body. That's a non-negotiable. But the rest of the stress, uh, we need to try to cut that down as little as possible. So I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to break up with your girlfriend, go your own way. She's stressing you out too much, all of that stuff. Don't, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, though, you need to manage that type of stress and take it into account whenever you're thinking about recovery. So, number one thing we need to worry about here is training load. So, how hard are you training? Are you training hard enough to worry about recovery? That's something that a lot of people will get wrong is worrying about, whether you're recovered or deloading or all of that stuff. And like you watch them train in the gym and every set looks like a warm up set. They're not even training hard. You have to be training hard enough to warrant worrying about fatigue management when it comes to training. So if you're wondering, are you training hard enough? Go back, watch my training video. We talk about that a little bit in there. But let's just assume that you're training hard enough, close to failure, enough volume that you're stimulating growth. Eventually, you're going to get beat up and you're not going to be able to progress anymore. So, how do you know if this is happening? If you're not progressing or you're regressing on your movements. So, last week in the training video, we talked about if you're not progressing, maybe add in some volume and try to get some, more stimulus there, more stimulus to the muscle. So let's say you add in some volume and you're still not progressing and all the rest of your recovery markers start to go down. So what do we look at when we're talking about recovery markers? We're looking at resting heart rate and blood pressure. If you're an enhanced athlete, the resting heart rate and blood pressure thing is super important because you want to keep those as low as you can for other reasons. But as a natural, the more fatigued you are, the more stressed you are, the more allostatic load is on your body, the higher your resting heart rate and blood pressure will be just at rest, normal when you wake up in the morning, that type of stuff. So, looking at that, Looking at your sleep. So if you're not tracking your sleep, you should be. It's a super valuable measurement as far as recovery, uh, as far as stress management, that type of stuff. So looking at your resting heart rate, is it starting to creep up? Has it been elevated as opposed to normal for a little while? Let's look at your sleep. Is your sleep quality declining? The biggest one, in my opinion, and the biggest one for me normally is motivation to train. So, how motivated am I to get into the gym and get after it? Uh, normally, I'm pretty jazzed up about wanting to go hit a session. Uh, besides besides cardio, I don't particularly just love doing my cardio, but I go do it. But as far as weight training sessions, legs, upper body, push, pull, doesn't matter. I'm normally pretty jazzed up to get in the gym and get after it. So whenever I could kind of care less about going to the gym, if I'm ever like wanting to wanting to skip a session or just not feeling like training that day or things like that, if that's piling up, if there's a week or maybe 2 weeks where I'm just kind of feeling like, man, I don't really want to train, I, you know, kind of go in just wanting to go through the motions, that type of stuff, that's a pretty good sign that I'm getting too beat up, need a deload. Also, looking at water retention. So the more stressed you are, the less recovered you are. You're going to be a little bit puffier. You're going to be holding on to a little bit more water. Cortisol comes up, and that can lead to some extracellular fluid, leaving you looking a little puffy. So look at your look in the mirror. Look at your resting heart rate, blood pressure, motivation to train. Oftentimes, if you push this a little too far, your body will give you a deload anyways. So, sometimes what's happened to me in the past is I pushed this a little too hard, tried to keep training whenever I needed a deload, past a few weeks, and normally get sick or get a little injury, something like that, that forces you to take a little time off and then you can come back. But if you deload before that happens, you will be way better. So that's how we manage stress as far as training. Whenever uh, when it's time to pull back on training, taper, deload, and give your body a little bit of a rest from that stressor. But what about the other stressors? What about work, at home? How do you manage the stress that comes from that? I'm a big fan of mindfulness practices. I think they tie in greatly to physique development. It's something that has helped me improve my physique quite a bit. I think just being mindful of what I'm doing, uh, not letting stress from other areas of my life bleed in to whenever I need to the other areas of my life that I would like to be stress free. So things like not taking stress from work home with you, not working while you're in the gym trying to get a training session in. And so I know it can be difficult. Most of us track on our phones, track our weights and reps and everything on our phones. Put your phone on do not disturb. Just rock and roll. You don't have any notifications coming in. Be mindful that you're not scrolling Instagram, looking for stressors like that whenever you're in the gym's a big one for me. So mindful training, uh, separating, your work, your home, your gym life, all of that stuff, keeping all of that separate so that the stressors aren't bleeding over. Uh, Even if you have a stressful day at work, you can leave it there. You can go home and have a pretty good night and not have to worry about it. And so that's something that is really beneficial there. As far as some other tips, journaling. I know this all sounds really like hippy dippy. It's not. uh, It's not really like bodybuilding, mainstream, hardcore type of stuff, but I'm telling you that it works. You can, really start implementing a lot of the mindfulness practices. You will be super surprised at how much better that makes your recovery, how much better that can make your sleep, all of those things. So, speaking of sleep, That is the biggest recovery tool in your toolbox. If you're not sleeping enough, it doesn't matter if you're in a muscle gain phase, it doesn't matter if you're in a fat loss phase, you're going to be looking at some deleterious health effects, deleterious physique effects there. So, how much sleep do you need? Recommendation normally 7 to 9 hours a night. That is a pretty big jump, pretty big difference for people there. For me, most of the time, as long as I'm close to 7, I'm rocking and rolling pretty well. My wife, she needs significantly more, up 8 or 9 at least, for her to really feel good the next day. A good measure of this is number one, how rested do you feel when you wake up? So you wake up, and if you feel pretty rested, you probably had a pretty good night's sleep. And then throughout the day, that afternoon 2 p.m. crash that people talk about, that's not normal. You shouldn't be crashing at 2 p.m. You shouldn't need a coffee at 3 o'clock. You shouldn't need a 300 milligram of caffeine pre workout at 5 p.m. so you can go and hit your session. If you need, if you need copious amounts of stimulants, especially later in the day, you're not sleeping enough. That's just kind of the long and short of it. The stimulant thing also can hurt recovery a little bit. So while we're on the topic of sleep, it's kind of a vicious cycle you can get into there. So you're not sleeping enough. So you hit the stimulants, whether it's the pre workout or the coffee or whatever it may be, that afternoon because you start to get tired and you're at work. You can't just lay down and take a nap. So you hit some coffee, and then on your way to the gym after work, you're hitting your pre workout. Now you've had 400 milligrams of caffeine in you, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon. Caffeine's got a pretty long half life that is still going to be buzzing around inside of you at 10, 11, whatever time you go to bed, uh, affecting your sleep. And so then you get another night's worth of poor sleep. The next day you're tired again. You have to hit the coffee about 2 p.m., the 300 milligram pre workout, and then it's buzzing around. It's just a vicious cycle. So if that's something you're doing, deal with being tired, deal with having a poor session for a couple days. Don't hit those stimulants later in the day. If you're gonna, if you're gonna drink coffee, I love coffee. I train in the morning, so I do drink a pre-workout before that has some caffeine in it, and then I will do normally a coffee after, and that's a pretty good. I think somewhere around 400 milligrams of caffeine, which is quite a bit. That's you do the quick math, about 5 milligrams per kilogram for me. But it doesn't affect my sleep. I get to bed just fine, sleeping just fine. Some other stuff, if you're somebody that struggles to get enough sleep, I'm a big fan of sleep supplements. So things like ashwagandha, KSM 66 is probably the best one there. But melatonin, I know a lot of people hate on melatonin because of the tolerance. L-theanine is another good one, help you relax a bit. Another tip here is if you're going to use a large amount of caffeine, whether for pre-workout or you have to give a presentation at work or something like that, and you want to be dialed in, laser focused, you're going to use a large amount of caffeine. Take about 200 milligrams of L-theanine with that. It'll help with the crash. It'll help with making you feel jittery. Uh, Actually, in the same vein as this, one of the pre-workouts that I use for my morning sessions is Stem Rush from Titan Nutrition. It has it's a it the name is the name is Stem Rush, and so it's pretty high stimulant, but it has 200 milligrams of L-theanine in there, and that makes it feel real nice and even as it goes through. It doesn't make me feel jittery or anything like that. So as far as sleep goes and how to get better sleep, you can use the sleep supplements like we already talked about. That's great. But if you're, up scrolling on your phone, looking at Instagram, getting wound up about, whatever the president said or whatever there until 2 a.m., I don't care how much melatonin, L-theanine, ashwagandha you take, you're not going to get a good night's sleep. So you need a good sleep hygiene routine. So what does that look like? For me, that looks like, putting the phone down a little bit before bed. You don't want to be laying in bed on your phone. Uh, the other big thing is your bed is for sex and sleep. So don't be, you know, sitting on your bed doing a lot of work. Your brain should know whenever you get into bed, you're doing one of two things, either having sex or going to sleep. And that is going to be beneficial to it kind of shutting off, going down, and putting you into that sleep mode. A warm shower before bed, not too hot where you get out and you're super sweaty and all of that stuff, but kind of a warm shower before bed seems to help. Make sure your room is plenty cold. Make sure the room's dark. I like blackout curtains, tinfoil over the windows if you live somewhere where there's bright lights outside. Or I used to work nights, and so that was difficult there. So I had to have blackout curtains through the whole house and everything, so that was nice and dark. Also, a fan is a good option. So, a fan makes a little bit of noise, so that kind of white noise can help you drift off and cools it down a little bit. So, those are all things to think about. Journaling, which, like I said, it sounds kind of hippy dippy, but I promise it works. If you can just write down your thoughts, whatever's on your mind, right then, right before bed, that is a big help as well. And fiction reading, it's something that just kind of lets you shut your mind off, lets you, turn off, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You don't have to think about anything. You just think about reading the book, but you don't have the light and everything from your phone right in your face there right before bed. So, those are all good sleep hygiene tactics. So if you're someone that struggles with sleep, just know that you're really putting a big knock on what you could be doing with your physique. If you're in a fat loss diet and you're only getting 5 hours of sleep per night, you're going to be losing a higher proportion of lean mass than you are fat mass. That they've done studies on that. That's something that we could break down at another time. But if you're in a muscle gain diet, it's not as big a deal because you have that extra food there to kind of prevent the catabolism, but you are going to be shifting that nutrient partitioning towards fat storage as opposed to muscle gain, which is not what you want. So make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. That is the most valuable tool in your toolbox. Nutrition is probably the next most important, right behind sleep. So you have to sleep, whether you're fat loss dieting, muscle gain dieting, make sure you get plenty of sleep. The next one is nutrition. So, how much are you eating? If you've ever done a serious fat loss diet, you know that by the end of it, you're pretty beat down, you're pretty tired, uh, training, suffering, your recovery's in the tank. That's because you don't have enough fuel coming into your body through your mouth via food to do the recovery that you need from everything, whether it's life stress, uh, work stress, home stress, new puppy dog stress, training stress, all of that stuff. If you're doing a bodybuilding show, it might be stress from the PEDs that is also leaving you feeling kind of run down. And so you're if you're in a fat loss diet and you have to be in a fat loss diet because you're in prep or you need to pull off some fat, then there's not much you can do about this. The main thing is going to be making sure you have plenty of carbs around your workout window so that your workouts don't take a big hit. So if you're somebody that's only eating 150 grams of carbs a day on a fat loss diet, you might do 75 pre, 75 post, and just fibrous green veggies the rest of the day because that's what's going to fuel your training. You're getting plenty of carbs so that you have, available blood glucose before the session, and then you're getting, plenty of carbs after the session so that you can replenish the glycogen that you lost, and that is going to help fuel your sessions as you get towards the end of that fat loss diet. Now, notice how I haven't said anything about cold plunges or sauna or uh, micro needling or dry needling or insert your favorite little recovery modality that you saw on, some podcast that works great and is going to make you recover. I haven't mentioned any of those because none of those are really worth doing. Cold plunges, as physique athletes, we probably don't need to be doing cold plunges. They blunt hypertrophy. If you're doing them basically on the same day as training, it's going to hurt your training adaptation. And so I don't worry too much about that. I know there's plenty of guys getting soft tissue work done and all of that. If that makes you feel better and it makes you feel more recovered, definitely go for it. I don't have any problem with that. I'm not going to tell you not to. The only thing I'm going to tell you not to do is cold plunge on the same day that you're training. But none of that is necessary to optimize your recovery. All of that stuff is mostly placebo, if it does anything at all. The dry needling, the soft tissue work, all of that stuff, it might do something temporarily. There's some studies that suggest that there's a chance of that, but long term, you're not looking really any benefits. Sauna, there are definitely some health benefits to sauna. As far as the studies that I've seen show overall health benefits, but doing it for recovery or thinking that it's going to help you build muscle is you're not doing it for the right reason there. So just a quick recap, guys. How do you maximize your recovery so that you can build the best physique that you can build with your genetics? Number one is going to be sleep. You got to make sure that you're sleeping enough. Number two is going to be your training management. So making sure that you're doing enough, but not doing too much. Like I talked about, deloads. Keep an eye on your recovery markers there. I'm not saying check your HRV every day, and if it says you're run down, don't train and all of that. But do a little bit of auto regulation when it comes to training volume and how you're feeling, all of that stuff, and take a deload when you need a deload. We talked about your recovery markers, what they look like whenever you need a deload. Your nutrition, make sure you're getting plenty of carbs in. Carbs help with IGF-1 release and getting it where it needs to go. So I'm a big time keto hater if you guys haven't caught that yet. Uh, Low carb diet, I hate it. It's for fat people. In my opinion, it's for fat people that need just an easy elimination diet so they can become less fat. That's fine, but we're trying to build physiques here, and so we need carbs. So make sure you're getting your carbs around your workout, even if you're in a fat loss diet. You have 150 grams of carbs for the day, 75 pre, 75 post, green vegetables the rest of the day would be my recommendation. Now, if you're in a muscle gain diet, make sure you're eating plenty and eating plenty of the right stuff. You can go back and watch episode 2, What is the Right Stuff? And then stress management. So, stress management is super important. Uh, it ties in a lot with your mental health too, as well. So, if you can stay in a good headspace, don't get too worked up, don't get too stressed out, don't stress over things that don't matter much. So, I know you're watching this video, you're trying to optimize your physique development, but you might be doing a little bit too much. If you're making little tweaks and changes and everything like that every week and really stressing about, is this exercise better than this exercise, or should I eat mangoes versus pineapples this meal for the digestion? Oh, pineapples have, bromelain, it'll digest better. I should eat pineapples instead of mangoes. And you're stressing yourself out about all that. You're doing more harm than you are good. So stress management. Don't worry about stuff that you don't need to worry about. Practice mindfulness. Focus on the task that is in front of you. That is a big one for me. A singular focus. Focus on what you're doing right now, not what you need to do later, not what you did earlier in the day, and it's going to work out better for you. Split up your home life, your work life, your training, all of that. Don't let the stress from any of that bleed over into the other. The last thing here, guys, is if you need help recovering better, sleeping better, or having a better mindset, a couple months ago, I put out a recovery and mindset guide. It is free for you guys to download. Just go down and click the link in the video description. Everything we talked about today is going to be more in depth in that ebook. So it's everything from mealtime mindfulness, mindful eating, singular focus, nutrition around the workout to help you recover, sleep hygiene, stress management tools, all of that stuff. Go get your free copy. Sign up for my newsletter. We talk a lot about this type of stuff there. I'm a big fan of the mindset things. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching. I've been Justin Jennings with Jennings Performance Coaching. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and leave a comment anyways. Let me know what you thought. All my links are down below. You guys can hit me on Instagram, WhatsApp, any of that. We can talk about some coaching if that's something you're interested in as well. Until next time, bye.